You are watching Beyond the Label, where we go past the price tag and into the power of trade to transform lives. In today's episode, we engage with women across the value chain, driving change. We are joined by Fairtrade Africa Zintle and Global, Lisa van der Merwe from Mervida Boerdery, and also Commission for Gender Equality's Mpelo Malebai. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you very much, Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you.
I wanted us to start with your own journeys. We'll start with you, Zintle. What first drew you into the world of trade or advocacy?
Thank you very much, Sandy. There's a bit of background to it. I'm an agriculturist by profession, and I've always been in the community development space, supporting sugarcane producers in Eswatini for more than 13 years. And the most exciting part about what I was doing was when I was a business development facilitator. And one of the objectives, which was an interesting one, was to turn subsistence farmers into commercial farmers. And as part of the support that we were providing, we were looking at the health of an organization, which were the cooperatives, and some actually were registered as companies. So we're looking at the health, we're looking at the business management aspect of things. Fast forward, I moved to Fairtrade Africa as a support in Eswatini. That was in 2016. And it was really interesting to see how my exposure supporting producers on the ground was fitting into the standards and the advocacy work around fair trading practices. And this is not just looking at sustainable production on the ground, it's also looking at the rights of the members and also of the workers. So in the bigger scheme of things, as a development facilitator, you want to see the producers growing first of all, and also you want to see them benefiting from their hard work. So it's for the same reason, actually, it was easy for me to come back to Fairtrade, rejoining in 2021, because I believed in the codes. I believed it's not just about growing, it's also about producers getting a fair price and also them having a voice in what they are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lisa, the same question to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. It's nice to join you guys this morning. So we have probably been Fairtrade for about 20 years now, Fairtrade accredited. We're a seventh generation family-owned farm in the Breederkloof near the town of Rawsonville. And for us, it's such a simple thing. It's almost a non-negotiable thing for us to have the Fairtrade accreditation, just because if you look in the past 20 years, what it has meant for our community and on the farm, and what it has meant for on the producer side, the community side, and for our brand, it's been incredible to see the growth. And I think a big focus what we've had on the farm is a focus on especially our education side, with our facilities that we've been able to put up with the money that's coming back from the Fairtrade premium. So for us, it's a really simple, it's a simple thing. It's not negotiable. And I always think back, I grew up in an incredibly privileged home. And I had a mother who always encouraged me to do my very best and to continue learning and to go to school and go to university and everything. And I think for us, we're finally seeing that snowball effect from having the facilities on the farm and actually having the parents also encouraging the kids to stay in school and because there's just so much more opportunity for them. So it's been an incredible 20 odd years, and we're very, very grateful for what we've been able to put into place on the farm.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Mpelo?
I guess my journey is quite similar to the other two ladies. probably when I was young, of course, I was always privy to injustice. As I moved through my schooling careers, I then got the language to actually describe the injustices and what exactly my feelings around advocacy and justice and all that kind of related to. So I then went on to study sociology to understand the social landscape and to be able to name it and understand it and be able to analyze. And then did my degree as well in gender studies and went on to study up until master's level gender and law. Following that, of course, working for the Commission for Gender Equality as a researcher, we kind of were involved in all areas of society, right? The Commission for Gender Equality is a Chapter 9 institution that works to promote, protect, develop and attain gender equality in South Africa. So we are an independent institution. And as a result of that, we are in every single corner of South Africa. We look at issues relating to agriculture. We looked at healthcare in correctional centers. We look at policies and practices of the state versus, for example, monitoring the national strategic plan. We do litigation. And in all kind of areas of society. Women in agriculture is no different. And we've seen that there's a lot of issues that we face in this country, particularly women who are rural subsistence farmers. And so as one of the avenues that the Commission is attending to through research and advocacy as well as investigations, that's one of the areas where I find myself involved. And, the work of the Commission is inherently linked to advocacy. And I'm so privileged to work in this institution because it allows me to kind of continue that work in all areas of society at a state level, which is incredibly powerful.
Well, yes, I get that. Thank you very much, Mpelo. Zinhle, for you again specifically, what is Fairtrade doing to support women across the value chain?
Please allow me to start at a high level on the tools that we use as Fairtrade to support or to promote better prices and better working conditions for workers. Fairtrade as a system, we are looking at four tools which we are using to support our producers. And for producers, for us, we're talking about farmers, and we're also talking about workers. So the first one is the standards, which are about promoting sustainable production. And when you look at sustainable production, it's not just about the production in the farm. You also remember these people, and you will find women there. There's also the environmental side of things. So it's all covered in that. We're also looking at, we use the premium, which is our unique selling point, which is an extra amount of money which producers get to close on the gaps on the environmental conditions, social and economic conditions. So they decide on how they use these fines, which is above the minimum or the market price. But we also have programs which are looking at empowering the different groups. We'll have market access support. I think those two programs and market access support. So now going back to how we are supporting women specifically, I think it's important for me to share that we have a gender strategy, which is looking at the protection of women, their protection even within the value chain. When you go back to the standard, there are clauses that are there and are meant to support their protection. We are also looking at enhancing their leadership capabilities. We're looking at their economic development. We're looking at the issues around GBV. But what I like the most is that while we have them, we have the standards, we have the different tools. Fairtrade recognizes the importance of supporting the woman because the standard may be there, the trainings may be there, the opportunities may be there. So we are very deliberate, and we have a Women's School of Leadership program, which is specifically supporting women And of course, we have a few men coming in because we want them to support the chorus. And within that, it's more about enhancing their leadership capabilities and supporting them. There's an entrepreneurship module within that. But the one I like the most, which I feel like it's talking to the woman, is the module on self-esteem and self-confidence. Because that way, once you understand who you are, once you understand that your voice matters, you'll be able actually to demand of what the standard is providing for you. You will have the energy, or you'll have the confidence to get into that board and be a member, understanding that you're not just there to be a number, but to make sure that you are representing yourself and also your other fellow women. So there are those programs from our tools. And then I think the Women's School of Leadership for me does it for our women. Thank you.
Thank you, Zintle. I think that is a very important point to make, because I think everything flows from the knowledge of who one is. If I know who I am, then I'm able to step into that more effectively. Mpelo, what are some of the more widely spread challenges that women sit with? And do you think, or rather, how does it feed into some of the issues that we find around gender-based violence, women inequality, and specifically within the farming communities?
Mm-hmm. I like what Zintle said there about, self-confidence, etc. That is an individual thing, and you're then able to step into what the standards are. So I think not just with the standards, the important thing, I guess, for us is to understand the structural and systemic things that are in place that should be available, whether or not you do have that confidence, right? Mm-hmm. Is that the system and the structure should enable you inherently to be able to live into that. Mm-hmm. And it should be your decision or not decision, your non-decision, to either partake or not partake in that. The option should be there. Right. And so when we look into the broader inequalities, then we look at issues that women face, whether it's small scale farming, whether it's informal traders, whether they're subsistence farmers, whether they're entrepreneurs who are with Fairtrade, for example, or not with Fairtrade. I think we need to then look into some of those challenges, which include access to land, tenure. When it comes to entrepreneurs, the leadership positions that they hold or don't hold within the institutions, workers, issues such as OHS is quite a big problem. Access to water and sanitation, exposure to pesticides, again, access to markets, access to credit, access to technology. And also looking holistically from that perspective is a big part of that is also the unpaid care work that women are often undertaking from all levels. And that's the structural and gendered problem that we are all exposed to, right? Is that whether you're a farm worker or a farm owner or a farm manager, there are still elements of unpaid care work there. And even if you don't undertake that work, there are certain backlashes that you might be facing because you're not participating in that unpaid care work. Pardon. Yeah. And so, also with regards to climate change, right, is that, of course, when there's a drought or floods or anything like that relates to climate change, yes, it affects everyone, but we need to be mindful of how it affects women and children in particular. I'll give you a simple example, like if there's drought and long-standing non-access to water, we then find, for example, that has specific implications for children, right? That has specific implications for women who are breastfeeding, women who are pregnant, women and children who are on their periods. There's specific gendered implications of not having access to water that we're not always mindful of. And so, from our perspective as the Commission, one of the things that we look at is the gender mainstreaming program, where we are dealing with farms or women in the agriculture space to say that we need to be mindful of these things, right, that seem like they affect everyone, but also cognizant of how they affect us differently. Another example is that women are seasonal workers and men are often permanent, right? And so for a permanent worker who's a man, for example, issues around transport and safety then become prominent, right? Because we need to be mindful of how that person is getting to and from work. For women, it might be the same thing in a seasonal aspect. Are there adequate lighting services available to ensure that should she be prone to violence at that point, the visibility, that's a serious concern, right? And does it then hinder her access to be able to work because there are safety concerns? So in the main, I think, Sandy, one of the things that we really need to consider or essential to this is that sometimes we need to be mindful that it's not always just an individual choice, but there needs to be certain systems, structures, policies in place that enable the environment for it to be fruitful for our individual joys and work and, financial implications, etc., because the system needs to be in place that allows us to put our best foot forward. Yeah,
I love that. Thank you so much. So what we are saying is that we do have systemic challenges that are still in place, and until we address that, even if I wanted to, if the system does not allow me to, it remains a challenge. And so we need to look at systemic challenges that are out there in order to empower women. And so, Lisa, I wanted to find out from you, in a practical way and on the ground, how have you empowered women at Marvida, for example?
Listen, we obviously on farm level, it's a lot more on the practical side of things. There's still so many challenges for women on farms. Just in terms of we've got over, I think, 872 dependents on the farm, and obviously a lot of them are female and a lot of them are children. And for us, one of the biggest practical things that we addressed was our lack of having support for the families that are struggling. So we, through the Fairtrade Premium, we've managed to be able to appoint a social worker on the farm. And that's made a massive difference. She's able to address issues before they become big issues. So she's been able to address them early on. She's been able to remove women or children, out of homes that are not safe. She's been able to just simple, arrange simple celebrations on the farm for Mother's Day or Father's Day, or small things that if that we can see, they really impact the especially the woman so well. And she's actually our social worker. Her name is Mersha, and she is in charge of our quite recently launched aftercare facility too, because we noticed that the kids go to school, but then at home often the moms and dads are both working, so then there's no support in terms of homework or getting their tummies full, or just being there and being present and supporting your child. So with the opening of the aftercare facility that Mersha is running, we've seen such a big improvement with the kids' school results. The school in town are phoning my brother and telling him, they can't believe how well the kids are doing, and their attendance is better. They're not skipping school. They're not getting involved with the wrong crowds at school. And I think that a big part of that is just that stimulus that they're getting from the aftercare facility. And they're getting a sandwich or a bowl of soup or something from there too. So I think the kids are happier, the families are happier. So for us, practically, probably the biggest impact that we've had is the fact that we've been able to employ the social worker. And then obviously, we We've had our first university graduate who happens to have been a girl, which I think is really cool. So she went off to study the accounting, and for us that's huge. That's she went to Stellenbosch University. She did so well. She was in a raise there. And there's no pressure for her to come and work on the farm. I think it's actually incredible that she's finding her own feet. But we've had girls who want to become drivers, and that's obviously a very male-led thing on a farm. If you know how on a farm, you don't get female drivers, but they've gone to go do their driver's licenses, and several girls who've gone to go study management and teaching, and a lot of them have trickled back into our centers, the early childhood development center and the aftercare center. So yeah, it's been small shifts that we've made that have really made, or that we feel have really made a big difference. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done. I don't think your work ever stops, but yeah, for what we've got going on now and the positive changes we've seen with her joining our team has just been incredible.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I think it's important to celebrate the small wins, because otherwise we keep looking at the negative. But that's exciting. I also hear about the triple role of women, where the unpaid care work, where that is never acknowledged. And from the sounds of it, that you guys have identified that. And I've come up with a solution, for example, aftercare, to help the woman as well, because I do believe that it frees up more of their time and they can focus on work. So versus having to stress about their children. So that is amazing. Zintle, I wanted to know from you, I know that there are so many projects within Fairtrade that is very strongly woman-led. What are some of those projects or programs that's being run within Fairtrade?
Thank you, Sandy. Actually, when Eliza was talking to what is happening in South Africa, I was thinking of how much we underestimate how some of these projects do not even look like they are women project or women-led. I'm thinking about the case of a producer in Malawi. Malawi, only 11% of the population has access to electricity, and only 2% are in the rural areas. Bello was talking about the systemic challenges and other challenges that are there, which are disadvantaging our women. And when you talk about the triple role of women, and when you look at that intervention and how it has supported the woman, first of all, once they are connected to the grid, there's the lighting. They're not worried about their children. It has improved their economic conditions because now they have businesses, they've bought a fridge through the connection and other things which are linked to that. So it's one of the things where we really need to think about the needs, and with every intervention, how is the woman benefiting? Of course, we have some projects in West Africa on it's good agricultural practices. So we are seeing women in the energy sector, use of clean energy solutions, but they go beyond that. They're being advocates. They are growing in who they are, and with the support of the Women's School of Leadership, they are being advocates, getting into big meetings, and they are also in the extension side of things. So we are seeing projects that are supporting even their development, not only in the home front, but also as they go out there to represent their cooperatives and other women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanke. Mpelo, in your view, what does a truly gender-inclusive trade system look like? And how far off, in your opinion, or not off, are we?
I think a truly gender-inclusive trade circle, for example, is one that really is mindful of how gender operates at every level of the value chain or the circumstances. From as early or as small as a small-scale farmer, an informal trader, like I was saying earlier, to as far as a full-blown entrepreneur who's with Fairtrade and whose products are on the market all across the world, is to say that the system and the structure is mindful and aware and actioning exactly the ideals of a gender equality kind of environment. And that means that at every step where you think that gender might not be at play, you're mindful that it actually is always at play. And to take cognizance into the fact that patriarchy is a system under which we are all, right? Whether you benefit or don't benefit from it, right? Because sometimes we tend to believe that patriarchy only benefits men holistically. But patriarchy is the system, and we all use and abuse it in a way that sometimes is to our detriment, but also is to our benefit. But sometimes we don't even have movement within that system. And that's what we need to be mindful of. We also need to be mindful of the fact that patriarchy is always also shifting and shaping so that it stays alive. And it uses us to shift and shape so that it keeps its momentum. So what we need to do is actually constantly be resisting that, and also move with regards to accountability processes to ensure that we are always holding those institutions, organizations, individuals accountable so that they're mindful of how the impact of the patriarchy is towards us. And so I will say we've made progress, certainly, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I don't want to lament the current state of affairs because it would negate all the work that has already been done, which is a lot of work, I must say. Specifically in the South African context, 30 years ago to now, there's been quite a lot of developments, of course, not to the standard that we want, but we cannot negate the labor that has already been undergone. But as we look ahead, I definitely feel like there's much more that we need to be doing. And that would also entail a lot of partnerships, a lot of collaboration, a lot of accountability, and just implementation of what we already have in place. And so, I don't want to lament again, like I'm saying, but I think that there is still a lot of work that still needs to be done.
Thank you. I love the... we still require a lot of partnerships, a lot of policies. And it takes people, and it takes an awareness. And until you are aware, there isn't, like, you accept things as the norm until you know, wait, this is a system that works against me, and that feeds into patriarchy. So thank you for that. Just in closing, I would love your final thoughts. We will start with Lisa, then Sinclair, then Mpelo, please.
I think, for us, like I said earlier, small changes have made drastic big results on farm level, producer level. And our work is long from done, or, we can't just sit back and watch everything go by. Oh, yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done. There's still a lot of improvements that we can make. But I think the few small projects that we've got going, and obviously if we can sell more wine, that's fair trade, we can do more things. So that's why we always appreciate the support that we get from Fairtrade Africa. But I think the general awareness of what a fair trade wine does, especially in the European markets, I think that's starting to have more of an effect on the consumer, and they now realize what they are doing by buying that bottle. And we are so grateful for the markets that we've got in the UK, especially. But if we can get that trickle down into the South African consumer and on the South African markets, I think we can do so much more. And I know it's tough because a lot of the retailers, they have their own systems in place. But I think for us, we've seen big changes from small changes that have had a big effect. We're very grateful.
Thank you. Cynthia?
Thank you very much, Sandy. Maybe the work that we're doing in Malawi on the Women's School of Leadership, if I may start there, it was interesting to see the team, the guys from our team, responding to the content of the training, and then them feeling and seeing the injustices. For me, that was big. And I thought it is important to continue talking about this and sensitizing. I was part of a training on Friday, and from the men I could be the same. So I thought, let's continue talking. It's been a long one, but let's continue talking about these things just to sensitize and for people to see that there's a lot of work that we need to do to support our women. But what I would like to say in closing is that affirmative action is good, but it is not enough. It's not just about having the numbers and being able to report that we have representation. We want the voices of our women. We want their needs to be taken care of. So the big question is, are they participating effectively? Are they heard? And what are we doing to support that? So it's about supporting her and resourcing her where it's needed, and also empowering her. Thank you very much, Sandy.
Just in closing, I think from a South African perspective, we need to go back to the grounding legislation, which is the Constitution, that says the state must, right? It is not a choice. The state must. And so from the Commission side, who has the powers and functions outlined in the CGE Act, we need to look at the responsibility of the state, yes, but also of private institutions, right? Sometimes what we see happening in so-called private and personal spaces is actually highly politicized, and it's highly political. And so we need to find a way to move into those spaces that are seemingly untouchable and in the corners of society, especially in rural areas, where there needs to be a certain level of accountability. And so when I go back to the Constitution and say that the state must, the Department of Labor has responsibilities there. The Department of Agriculture has responsibilities there. The specific farm owners have responsibilities there. Just because it's a private space does not mean that it's out of the ambit of what the Constitution requires. And so just in closing, accountability measures need to be strengthened so that we ensure that what the Constitution says the responsibility of the state is, as well as private actors, is actually coming to fruition and being implemented accordingly.
Thank you, Mpelo. Thank you, ladies, for joining us today. The state must, that is our takeaway from today, but not just the state, but also private institutions, and in our case, farm owners. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Beyond the Label.